This is what I grew up with, that men are supposed to protect you from these predatory males.
I do too.
And they're not doing that.
And believe you.
On the contrary,
But we have
these people in Congress right now, in that Senate Judiciary Committee, these white men, old, by the way, are not protecting women. They're protecting a man who is probably guilty. If you're not Judge Kavanaugh, take the lie detector test. Prove it the way she did and the way Anita Hill did, that they were not lying. Let's see that from you. Or are you a coward?
We all know when something is unfair, when something smells. And we all know this. Let's face it, this is so patently unfair to her. And what really bothers me and gets me so angry is that the White House is victimizing this person. Why don't we get that out there? That why should we participate in a victimization of someone who has the courage to come forward? If the Republicans go forward with their plan to railroad this and to fast track this, as they have so many other nominations, I expect the members of the press to talk about how unfair this all is. I don't think that's editorializing, that's laying out some facts.
You're one of just 4 women on the committee. How does that impact the proceedings, if at all?
Of course it helps that there are women on that committee, but you know what? I expect the men in this country and the men in this committee, and many of them, believe me, because we all signed on to this letter to demand an investigation, but really, guess who's perpetuating all of these kinds of actions? It's the men in this country, and I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing for a change. Okay, you can see I'm a little upset by this.
I want to start out by saying SCOTUS nominee Brett Kavanaugh denies sexually assaulting Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, says he wasn't at the party, doesn't know anything about it, didn't see the building, wasn't anywhere near anybody, doesn't know anybody was there.
Okay, again, I repeat, she never said where the party was. So how do you know that you weren't at the party if you don't know where the party was?
Yes.
The woman never said where the party was, and he keeps insisting I wasn't at the party. How do you know? It's the craziest. That's one of the crazy things that's going on right now. Well, you people are not old enough to remember the Anita Hill thing, and I am.
I am.
Yeah, and I mean, she was sitting in front of a bunch of, again, the same old white guys, and one of them was like, and she's reporting that Clarence Thomas had some vile, stupid things that he did, you know, he said and did. And the only thing they could say to her is, "Are you a scorned woman, Miss Hill?" Like as if she was only getting back at him because he wouldn't go out with her or something. "Are you a scorned woman?" I remember that.
Congressman Keith Ellison, deputy chairman of the Democratic National Committee and a candidate for Minnesota Attorney General, has denied allegations that he abused his ex-girlfriend. Tonight, Karen Monahan is speaking on camera for the first time about an incident she says happened nearly 2 years ago. She sat down with Jerika Duncan.
44-year-old Karen Monahan says in September of 2016, she and her then-boyfriend, Minnesota Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison, got into a heated argument that scared her.
I was still in bed, and I was laying across the bed on my stomach. I was listening to my podcast, and he walked in. He said, "I need you to take the trash out." And I kept, because I was on my stomach, I heard him and I just went like that and shook my head. And he looked at me, goes, "Hey, you hear me?" And then he looked at me, he goes, "Bitch, get the out of my house." And he started trying to drag me off the bed. That's when I put my camera on to video him.
Did you call anybody after that?
I called a friend and I said, "I'm at the lowest of the low."
So Hillary Clinton is now weighing in on the Kavanaugh controversy, saying that his accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, deserves the benefit of the doubt, an investigation, and due process. Watch.
You had concerns at the time, your husband certainly had concerns at the time, that he never really had due process to defend himself from allegations like this. Have we learned anything over the years about due process, not just for the accusers, but also for the accused?
Well, I think that you have to take
each of these situations, sort of on their own merits. And what we have today is a process that has been rushed, that has been deliberately opaque. And yes, there should be due process for everyone involved.
My next guest takes some issue with those comments. Juanita Broderick says Hillary Clinton had a far different response when she came forward in the 1990s, accusing former President Bill Clinton of raping her while running for governor of Arkansas in 1978. Here now exclusively tonight is Juanita Broderick. Juanita, good to see you. Thanks for being here. What goes through your mind when you hear her talk about due process and fairness for the accused and the accuser?
Oh, the first thing you think about is she didn't give it to me. She didn't give it to Kathleen Willey or Paula Jones. She didn't give that to any of us. She's asking for things that she denied the victims of her husband.
And you also say that not only did she not acknowledge what you were accusing her husband of, but that she intimidated you. And this is a soundbite, a clip from an interview that you did a while back, explaining that I think it was the day after you claim you were raped by her husband, what her exchange was with you. Watch this.
She grabbed a hold of my arm and my hand, and she pulls me into her, and she says with this very angry look on her face, which had been so pleasant seconds before, and in a low voice says, "Do you understand everything you do?" And that frightened me. At that moment, and I have to go by what I felt then, and the look that she gave me, I felt like she knew. And
that he raped you.
Yes, and that she was telling me to keep quiet.
Turning to the Supreme Court showdown, Judge Brett Kavanaugh's accuser now open to testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday. President Trump weighing in on the controversy last night on Hannity.
I think it's a very sad situation. He's an outstanding person. And frankly, Sean, to see what's going on is just very, very sad. You say, why didn't somebody call the FBI 36 years ago? I mean, you could also say, when did this all happen? To take a man like this and besmirch. Now, with that being said, let her have her say, and let's see how it all works out. But I don't think you can delay it any longer. I have been accommodating. I say, let her say what she has to say, and let's see how it all comes out. But they've delayed it a week, and they have to get on with it.
Here now, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus, author of the book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Alan Dershowitz. Alan, good of you to be here. Good morning. Always,
Good morning.
Always a pleasure. One of the requirements, based on what her lawyers are asking for in order to have her appear before the Judiciary Committee, is that Brett Kavanaugh goes first. Is this a hurdle?
Every civil libertarian in the country, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, led by the American Civil Liberties Union, should be outraged at this demand. It is so un-American. You're the accuser. You get on the witness stand, you testify, you make your accusation, you get cross-examined, then the accused responds. It turns the entire legal system on its head. It is insane to ask an accused person to deny the accusation before he has heard the accusation being made and cross-examined. Sure, the FBI should continue its background check. They should also call everybody else who may have been at this party. All of that is true, but the idea that he goes first, I want to hear from the American Civil Liberties Union. Where are they? This is the most fundamental denial of due process.
So do you think that the Senate Judiciary Committee would never agree to these terms?
Never. It would be outrageous to put the person who's being accused on the witness stand first and say, would you please deny what we think we may have heard in a newspaper? There's a letter. We're not even going to show you the letter to Senator Feinstein. But now set out your argument, set out your case. I would never in a million years allow a client to be subjected to a kangaroo court like that.
But that you're kind of getting at the essence of this. This is no longer a confirmation hearing. It's turning into what feels and looks like is a criminal trial.
Well, Rachel Maddow says put him in jail, impeach him, there's no statute of limitations. She says it's attempted rape. Attempted rape under Maryland law, you'll pardon, I have to be specific, requires a specific intent to penetrate. There's no evidence, even in her allegation, of that. Look, men and women are not born with a gene for telling the truth or lying. These senators who say, I believe her, or the others who say, I believe him, nobody is in a position to believe or disbelieve. Let's hear her. Let's hear him. Let's hear other witnesses. Let's see them. Let's see their attitude. Let's determine their credibility. Then we can say, I believe. The idea that you always believe a man or always believe a woman is the most blatant form of sexism.
You're being too logical, Al. You're using your legal brain. Again, this is about hysteria all around.
Well, that's what lawyers have to do, and stop hysteria. And that's what the ACLU for years did. No more. They make so much money now on being anti-Trump, they have forgotten about civil liberties.
So I know that we're talking about a lifetime appointment here, so it's a little bit different. But what would normally happen in a case where you're talking about two minors and it's decades later? Because I believe he was 17, she was 15. So what would be normal precedent under these circumstances?
Number one, almost every state has what's called a Romeo and Juliet law. So if you have a 15-year-old and a 16 and a 17-year-old, it's generally not treated as a felony of the kind if it was a 40-year-old man and a 15-year-old girl. That's number one. Number two, I have to tell you, I've practiced law for 55 years. I have never heard of a case like this criminally being reopened after 35 years. It would be the first time, as far as I know, in American history, probably world history, that anything like this has led to a criminal investigation. Only in the world of radical extremists would you ever even hear a suggestion of a criminal prosecution.
So the accusers' legal team insists that this process is moving too quickly, and clearly Democrats in the Senate have a strategy to delay until perhaps the elections happen and we're moving on to 2020. What is the appropriate time frame here? Because you just mentioned we do have to do all these interviews. We have to conduct some sort of investigation. Is pushing this to next week, is that still too quick, or have Republicans pursued an appropriate time?
Both sides are wrong. There should be no time frame. We shouldn't be concerned about the election. We should be concerned about finding the truth. However long it takes to make sure she testifies, the other witnesses are put on the stand, subpoenaed if they have to be, the FBI conducts its investigation. Remember, the FBI has no jurisdiction criminally in this case because it took place in Maryland, but they do have the power to do background checks. They're not supposed to make credibility determinations, but they're supposed to gather all the evidence, give it then over to the Senate. Let the process unfold. Let there not be a deadline. If it happens before the election, so be it. If it happens after the election, so be it. But politics shouldn't determine the outcome of this investigation in terms of timing. If you have to ask this guy, Judge, why did you initially say you don't remember, and then why did you say, oh, it didn't happen? You have to be able to confront him with his inconsistencies, too. Look, everybody here has to pass the shoe on the other foot test. If this were a liberal Democrat who had this allegation being made against them, oh, by the way, we have such a case. We have Keith Ellison, who has a spousal abuse or a domestic abuse case against him. Where are the Democrats on that? The same standard has to apply to Democrats and Republicans. You can't have one system of justice for one party and another system for another party. I just want to see a fair process applied to everybody across the board. And I don't care whether it helps the Democrats or Republicans. I want to make sure the rule of law is preserved.
Well, the equal application of the law is kind of the old normal and is not the new normal. And what we're seeing in this
the equal
deeply
application
divided
of
world.
everything is no new normal. You can't have the same standards of morality, the same standards of the media, the same standards of anything. We have two truths. It's absurd the way we have become so partisan and so divided. You know, I was at the Red Sox-Yankees game last night as a Red Sox fan, but I have to tell you, when Aaron Judge gets up, I applaud. I met Reggie Jackson last night. He is my hero. I don't care. I'm a Red Sox fan, but I know a great player when I see one, and I know my friends who are Yankee fans. When, Martinez gets up, they cheer. That's the way it should be.